My love affair with Wagner began when I was a child, and first heard his music on my father's gramophone.
It was the overture to Tannhäuser, one of his earlier operas, and it did something most extraordinary to me. I've always loved music. I've always been hopeless at performing it. Couldn't really play an instrument, certainly can't sing, but it's made me do things inside. It's released forces within me, and no music has done it like Wagner's.
Over the years, my relationship with Wagner's music has grown deeper and stronger, but also more complicated. Because it's no secret my passion was also shared by him. And some people believe it even inspired his terrible crimes. I'm Jewish, so those are hard facts to face. And there have been times when I've wondered if I ought really to love Wagner at all. This is the story of what happened when I traveled to the home of the world's most controversial composer, to immerse myself in his music and salvage it, if I could, from its dark and troubled history. I'm in Bayreuth, in Bavaria, southern Germany. They call this the Green Hill, and at the summit sits a legendary theatre.
Well, for anyone who loves Wagner as I do, this place is Stratford-upon-Avon, Mecca, Graceland, all rolled into one. Bayreuth, the home of the Bayreuth Festival Theatre. And I'm here for the first time in my life. It's what I've always dreamed of doing. Oh, look, ticket office.
The Bayreuth Festival is exclusively dedicated to the music of Richard Wagner, who wrote 13 operas during a turbulent career. I've received a rare invitation to go behind closed doors as the new season takes shape.
Oh, it's fabulous. You don't often get a chance to see this.
There's so much to look at, but only one place to start, and that's with the music.
Wow, this is amazing. Lucky beggars.
As always, the centerpiece of this year's festival is the Ring Cycle, 4 epic operas inspired by Germanic myth.
Guten Tag, Valkyren.
This is a rehearsal for the second of them.
Valkyrie, second act. Just the second act.
The whole cycle runs to around 18 hours, performed over 4 nights. I can't think of another composer who's written anything as ambitious as that before or since. I suppose this must be the most famous Wagner tune of them all. But I think it's a pity if you only experience his music in bite-sized chunks. Because he was more than a composer. He was a musical dramatist too. And if you separate the music from the drama, you miss so much of the magic. Although even in this rough and ready form, it's enough to send a shiver up the spine.
Just fabulous to see this. The score sounds so funny on the piano. It almost sounds like silent film music at times when he's racing along, and then out comes that famous theme.
I'm fulfilling a lifetime's ambition by coming to the festival house, just as Wagner fulfilled his by building it more than 130 years ago. It's still driven today by the ideals which inspired him. And dedicated to the highest standards of performance and production.
Even the boxes are Wagnerian. I'm not sure if I was allowed in.
I'll explore more of the festival house later. But to understand why it exerts such a powerful hold on those of us who love Wagner's music, you need to know more about the trajectory which brought him to Bayreuth at the climax of his colourful career. It's 1,000,000 miles away from the type of theatre where he started out. They were more like this place, which was built in the 18th century, in the days when opera was even more elitist than it is perceived to be today.
This is everything Wagner detested about opera, a place to show off, to be seen, a place to whisper and talk and stare across at your rivals and neighbours and all the snobbery and nonsense that still pertains in so much of opera, of course. Wagner hated all that. It's funny, you've got to admit it's funny.
By his early 30s, Wagner had worked as music director in a string of places like this. He had also completed 6 operas, including Tannhäuser, the work which first ignited my passion for the music. But his radical ideas weren't confined to the stage. In 1848, he was working as musical director in Dresden's royal court. This was a year of political revolutions in Europe, and Wagner soon joined the struggle. He fought on the side of the left-wing nationalists who wanted to topple the princely German states and replace them with a unified nation. When the uprising failed, he found himself a wanted man with a price on his head. He fled here to Switzerland, and inspired by the landscapes near his Zurich home, he plotted a theatrical revolution to breathe new life into an ancient tradition.
He believed the greatest art form that mankind ever had was Greek tragedy, because Greek tragedy encompassed all the arts of acting, verse, music, dance, costume, spectacle, chorus. But more than that, it involved the whole community, all people. It wasn't a snobbish, elitist thing. It was a ceremony, a celebration. But more than that, it was a religious ceremony. And on top of that, too, its subject matter was myth. And Wagner believed very passionately that the very nature of myth was universal, because it was outside time. It wasn't about the bourgeois or the aristocracy. It wasn't stories of love affairs in history. It was outside time, almost like science fiction, but science fiction set in the past, if you like. It could speak to everybody, whatever their condition. So his revolutionary idea was to have what he called the total work of art, the Gesamtkunstwerk, and that therefore the word opera was pointless. He hated grand opera with its flounces and its absurd trills and ornaments. Obviously, at its greatest, like Mozart, he venerated it. But he wanted to cleanse the theatre and cleanse art of all this nonsense, and to get back to the elementals and to make a theatre for the people, which was music and dance and drama and everything. And he was going to be the one to create it, and he was going to be responsible for all aspects of it. And he put this together in an essay he wrote here in Switzerland, which was about the future work of art. And it was a future work of art that he was to make into a present work of art, the Wagnerian music drama.
To bring to life his utopian ideas, Wagner conceived of an opera about the mythical dragon-slaying hero Siegfried. Over time, his plans grew more ambitious. Instead of one opera, he would write 4. The Ring Cycle. An epic exploration of the conflict between our appetite for power and our hunger for love. The drama's set in motion by a struggle for control of a magical ring, which grants its owner unimaginable power, but only if they renounce love. It would take more than 20 years for Wagner to realize his grandiose dream with the Bayreuth premiere of The Ring Cycle in 1876. In the meantime, Wagner, exiled and penniless, had more prosaic concerns to deal with. In Zurich, he was fortunate to meet Otto and Matilda Wesendonck, a married couple whose fabulous wealth was matched by their enthusiasm for his talent.
He took a shine to Matilda immediately and took an even bigger shine to Otto's money.
Yes.
He was writing to friends about it within just a few weeks.
Really?
He'd met this rather nice woman with this very, very wealthy husband.
Wagner was a married man, although his relationship with his wife, Minna, was tempestuous. He had enjoyed his share of affairs over the years, but his infatuation with Matilda Wesendonck had a special intensity. No one knows exactly what went on behind closed doors here, but it's clear that the relationship fired Wagner's creativity. He wrote music inspired by her poetry, including a piece which later evolved into one of his greatest operas.
On the 23rd of December, 1857, Wagner performed a song of Matilda Wesendonck's that he dedicated to her called Träume, Dreams. He orchestrated it, and we're about to hear it in exactly the room it was first performed. Maestro.
Wagner's Swiss exile was a period of intense creativity. But here, as elsewhere in the story, a shadow falls across his sublime music. It's not only the fact that it was later appropriated by Hitler which makes some people think Wagner's art is tainted. It's also because Wagner himself was outspokenly anti-Semitic. In Switzerland, he wrote an article called Jewishness in Music, which still blemishes his reputation to this day.
It is ornamented with some genuinely revolting pieces of anti-Semitism. He talks constantly about a kind of, at a physical, visceral level of repulsion, instinctive repulsion that we feel towards the Jews. So there is a real anti-Semitism in that sense of literally, as people to be in a room with, they are revolting.
Anti-Semitism back then, of course, wasn't associated with the Holocaust. It was socially acceptable in a way that we couldn't imagine today, thankfully. But Wagner was by no means alone.
Anti-Semitism was widespread in 19th century Germany, even amongst political liberals like Wagner. It was linked to the rise in German nationalism, which saw the Jews, as so often in history, cast in the role of alien outsiders. But Wagner's outburst had a personal dimension too, fueled by his jealousy of the celebrated Jewish composers Mendelssohn and Meyerbeer.
Mendelssohn and Meyerbeer, they had money, they had success, they had nice lives. Wagner was small, ugly, virtually destined